Welcome back to the broadcast, that time where we update you on what is on the newspapers. Technically speaking of the news of the day, joining me for the same, that is via Skype, we have Kijana Steve Nderi, who is the ELP party leader, and we also have Lawis Brown, youth advocate. They'll help me go through what is captured on the People Daily, the Standard newspaper, and the Daily Nation. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning, Linda.
Salama.
Kabisa.
Salama kabisa.
All right, good to have you. Now, we have the People Daily that is on screen right now, and BBI is technically the biggest story, or the story that is ongoing. And I mean, I'm afraid that I do not see a scenario where we'll have a day without having to discuss BBI. And to pick it up, members of parliament want BBI changed, but Right Honorable Raila Odinga says no. Given the central role in making laws that are proposed in the Building Bridges initiative, legislators say that some recommendations defeat the purpose of reviewing the constitution. DP allies, we have done a story arguing that we probably do not even need a constitutional change right now, especially at this time when we're dealing with COVID-19, that such funds should be channeled towards, helping us deal with COVID-19 as a country. Gentlemen, what do you make of this? Probably to start with Lawis Brown, whom I've not had a chance to know his take on BBI.
Okay, well, on BBI, one, I would say concerning BBI, at this moment, I would say BBI has a very wrong timing, especially in this, in the situation that we are in. We are actually having our curve that had flattened now is now shaping towards the point that will say the nation is in a devastating mode. So, but one of the things I will say about BBI, for me, there are things, okay, well, the BBI has things that are focused and I would advocate for, but there are those that you wouldn't. I will just to mention a few concerning corruption, especially now we have, we are told that the electoral system will have to come from the political parties. This is one of the things that we all know, that politics actually, most of us are driven by the influence of ethnicity, and this is one of the things that is making this country. We can remember back in 2007. Since 2007, we've been having commissioners resigning. This is because of the ill minds or the corrupt minds that we have, and since IEBC or the Electoral Commission is supposed to be an independent commission, you have to resign. So one of the things is that the issue on political parties is one of the things that should be focused, or should be we can say should be amended. The other thing is we can see that there is this other thing concerning graft or corruption that is it's affecting us. The BBI itself is focusing on corruption and saying that we in 2 years,
right,
all corruption cases. All corruption cases should have a limit of 2 years, but we are finding that most of the people that you're having in these committees, they have corrupt or ill minds. So I don't get the point as to how BBI will is reflecting on the same on the ground.
All right, well, interesting views right there. As I loop you in, Steve, I would also want you to pick up on this particular story that has been captured on the front page, expanded on page 6. And while we're talking matters 2022 politics, BBI is crucial, and equally what direction we'll take as a country and whether we'll be going for an election then is equally crucial. So this story says that politicians are forming gangs ahead of 2022 poll, and illicit groups are being created with the aim of helping the leaders remain in power or to silence the opponents. This is a new report that has warned that indeed these politicians are doing this. The report by Global Initiative Against Transitional Organized Crime, of course, is the one that dictates this. I do not know what you make of this, bearing in mind that it's not really new. It's been something that has been in existence, but it looks like it is being taken to another level.
Well, As I have always said, it is unfortunate that BBI, an initiative that is supposed to unite the country, has divided the country even more. Looking at what has been happening, it is true that there is a lot of organized crime and organized war, violent groups that are geared towards the organization of 2022 politics. And this is all fashioned across the 2022 Kieleweke and Tangatanga lines. If you look at it, the BBI side or the Kieleweke side has the Kieleweke wing, which also has I have to say, a violence wing. We have seen it in Nyeri happening. We have seen it in Kenol. The Tangatanga wing also has its own, form of violent wing, which always mobilizes people during rallies, and when there is danger, they are always ready to strike. So what is happening is that this BBI initiative has really formed divisions in this country. And it is unfortunate because if you look, the Kieleweke team, to put it outright, is that they are preparing for the positions they intend to create. So we find that it is an alliance of political individuals who are preparing for the seat for the expanded executive. The Tangatanga side, and that's why it's more of one-man show, is preparing for a Ruto government where they can benefit from maybe cabinet seats and other government seats. So basically, it is about politicians preparing for 2022. And that is why we have more senior politicians supporting BBI, because it is going to create more seats for them, and therefore they are at a point where it is a matter of life and death. And you see, the whole sense of creating a BBI initiative to unite the country was so that we can make an election not a matter of life and death. However, the BBI is actually creating a matter of life and death for elections, where these people are ready to go an extra mile to even cause violence to ensure that these things go in their direction. Looking at the Building Bridges initiative, I must say that it is unfair how the former President Raila Odinga and the Kieleweke side are dismissing other views. We must say that uniting the country and even amending a constitution, number one, it is not the role of the state. It is not basically the role of the state. And as Kamino said, the lawyer, I think he put out a letter yesterday to the government saying that we have more important things to address. And even though we are actually amending the constitution, there are actually unconstitutional amendments to the constitution. And those are what we are saying right now. Whenever you go to amend the article of Bill of Rights, there are some gains that we have made against the excesses of government, because the role of a constitution is to control the excesses of government. So the gains we have made towards controlling that, then we cannot backtrack. And backtracking is actually an unconstitutional amendment. So some of these amendments actually need to be reviewed, and we must go there with an open mind. And we must also remember that it is not the role of the state to amend the constitution, it is the role of the people. And if it is the role of the people, then it must come from the people, and they must give their views, and they must be inclusive of every person's views. Because if it was an issue like Okoa, what we had, Punguza Mzigo, then that was an initiative by a group of people. But here, public funds are being used. So the public in general must be involved, and all the ideas must count.
All right. Well, interestingly, some of the views from Punguza Mzigo have been incorporated, as the Secretary General would say, because they also had a chance to present all these proposals after the BBI team, of course, was out there trying to find out what people would want. Now, let's take it a little bit first in the best interest of time. Politicians grooming gangs for 2022. I think we've already touched on that. Another story here is on matters health, and COVID-19 numbers continue to go up. We now stand at 70,245. And sad to note is that we are staring at a health crisis going to get tough, or things are going to be tough, as 10 doctors have succumbed to COVID-19 with hundreds others infected. And medics have now given a strike notice that if they are not protected at work, they will down their tools, making a bad situation worse. According to Chibanzi Mwachonda, he says that in the meantime, all doctors are instructed not to risk their lives as per Section 14(2) of the Occupational Safety Health Act 2017, pending the resolutions of the NAC meeting. Such is the scenario in the country. We are worried. Today, the CS for Matters Health is set to convene a meeting, more or less like a crisis meeting, to address these particular issues, among them, of course, the surge of COVID-19. Lawi is coming to you. What do you make of this? A sad state of affairs?
Okay, now concerning these health issues, it's very shocking to find we have government officials that are leading. Despite the current condition that we are in, we have people that are leading masses, and they are having meetings, public rallies or public meetings, and yet we found them. On the other hand, they are there advocating and saying that this is a time that people should take care. If they at all themselves, as the president said when he was addressing the nation, he talked of COVID being a personal responsibility. But now we find these people are now even taking advantage of Kenyans and holding meetings that are even making these cases to rise. On the other hand, we also see that we also having the doctors that or the health workers who have been planning or thinking of having a strike, and yet we can see the current situation, and this will be part of mobilizing people. So in one or another, it's a time that we should now put our interest aside and think about this nation, think about your brother, think about your sister, because we find that most of the people are going to suffer after this because of selfish interest that we have.
All right, coming to you, Steve, and it's not just the health sector that is in limbo. Equally, the education sector is struggling at this point, at a time when also the senators are demanding that CS Magoha should be kicked out based on how he's handled the issues of matters health in the country, education in the country. And of course, the saddest bit is what was going on last week in regards to that video of him, being a little bit tough on one of our officials on matters education. So lawmakers want education boss reprimanded in line with ethics law provision. What do you make of this?
I think it is a step in the right direction for senators or any individual in the country to want Magoha to resign. And why I believe this is that we, in this BBI time, we are speaking about the integrity of public officers. And as such, we must start practicing it. There is no better way to start practicing it than demanding for the best conduct from our state officers. We must understand that state officers are actually not doing us a favor by serving in those offices. They must understand that they are actually being paid by Kenyans. So they must also respect them. So whenever we see them not being in good conduct, and of course, the way he has been handling the whole issue of going back to school, giving contradicting information, it's something that has not inspired hope in many Kenyans. And therefore, I think it is a right move to ask Magoha to resign and to set the standards high for public office in Kenya. Then he actually has to. And if he doesn't, then the president should take the step of firing him. For someone who has already been stripped of the powers to manage the human resource, then I don't see any other major important role that he has in the ministry. On the issue of doctors, the Occupation and Health Safety Act was brought there to protect the medics and the health officers, as they also take care of people. But for the longest, we have never heard them speaking about it, because it is something that they practice, and it is something that there are always measures to ensure that the medics are protected. But where we are now, it's a place where medics fear for their life, even as they take care of ours. And they have decided now we have to prioritize on our lives, even as we take care of the lives of Kenyans. And it is something that is understandable. And what that tells us is that not entirely being on our own as Kenyans, but the fact that we must start now practicing, as Lawi says it, we must start practicing personal responsibility, because that is the only solution. Doctors won't save us. Nothing will save us other than personal responsibility. And politicians must also become responsible. And if they hold rallies, then Kenyans must make sure they do not attend. Let them come and see that they are alone. We must make a statement to these politicians and show them that we care more about our lives, because we have realized that they don't.
All right, well, still on the same, coming to the Standard newspaper front page, and Alama's neglected medics call for strike left to fight a killer pandemic without adequate PPEs and compensation. Doctors, nurses and clinicians give strike notice. A story on page 8 of the Standard newspaper. Feast dilemma as CS calls talks on school calendar. Stakeholders confront challenge of new dates, compressing 2022 and 2021 lessons and the fees. A story captured on page 2 of the Standard newspaper. And BBI signature tune, meters asked the ballot in the clearest signal yet that the Kenya is now headed for a contested referendum. As you can see right there, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, accompanied by the likes of CS Matiang'i, who have also gone out of their way to support their BBI document. And the DP maintains that maybe COVID-19 is more of an important issue to deal with, as opposed to us focusing much on the referendum talk. Going to page 2, still on that particular story. Feast dilemmas, Magoha calls meeting on school calendar. Hospital fined for fatal brain surgery. Actually, that also has been captured on the front page. That is right at the top. They say surgeon's knife. Doctors cut out the brain of a man who had tumor. A story captured on page 3, pretty much unfortunate. You can always grab a copy and get to know what happens right there. Member of Parliament Murunga was a man of the people, fancied education. May his soul rest in eternal peace. This conversation is ongoing after he lost his life. CBC rising school enrollment pushes education budget to 769 billion. This would be my question again briefly, Lawis, on the aspect of matters education. COVID comes at a point where we are rolling in a new curriculum. Do you suppose that in any way we are still going to maintain that? Remember, before COVID, there were lots of different conversations in regards to whether indeed we should proceed and roll out this new curriculum. Most of the stakeholders arguing that we were not ready as a nation. At this point, when COVID-19 is here, don't you suppose then it's going to be a tougher scenario? And what are the likelihoods, or what phase will this phase of our aspect of matters curriculum face at this particular time?
Well, matters pertaining curriculum, we have the CBC that was just introduced the other day, and there are some of the students or pupils that have been subjected to this curriculum. One, I will just put a flashback on when we were in school, while we were in high school. We used to have subjects. I used to find most of the schools that while you're in Form 1, you have 11 subjects. But when you move forward to Form 2, you're told to choose 8 subjects, not 8 subjects that are favoring you, 8 subjects that are favoring the school. And this is a point that now the ministry should focus on, because, well, I even don't know who came up with this word subject, because it's subjecting or forcing students to cope into a certain subject that and you see that and that's why you will see that most of the pupils or students will come and as they are enrolling for certain courses, they come and ask themselves, how has the 844 system helped me? Well, in the real sense that one, I think one is coming forward to Form 4 to Form 1. They are always sure of what they want to do or what they want to be. And now with the CBC, I think now with the implementation that is in the CBC, I think students will now be able to cope up with the current situation. And though we are going to have hitches, since it's a transition, because we have the 844 system and we also have the CBC system. Then to focus on matters pertaining. We are seeing corruption levels in schools. I want to attest. I want to say this, especially in schools. I'm also a student. I'm also pursuing a certain course, and you find that despite having the online classes, we also have physical classes. And with the current situation, with the levels of COVID, it's surprising that if at all public gatherings are being banned, why should we have students meeting in class? Because we are all humans, and you find it's a new normal because we've not even adapted. So I think the best thing as the Ministry of Education should have done, or should do, at least, as much as the government is also banning public rallies, it should first put schools on hold, so that you can be able to curb us to curb this COVID that is actually affecting we as Kenyans. So I think it's necessary that as now CS Magoha, though he has there are some duties that he has been that have been delegated to someone else.
Right.
I think it's upon us to have it's upon the Ministry of Education to focus more on the individual. How are they suffering, or what are they gaining from that?
Well, all right, and let students pick subjects that rhyme with their career. It's a story captured on the Daily Nation page too. I guess that can be related to that conversation that we're having. Our teachers should nurture our gift, not burden us with things that confuse us more. I wish the Ministry of Education considered what students needed before deciding which subjects they are to be taught. It's going to be an interesting conversation right there, and we await to see what will happen, or what will take center stage in regards to matters education. The front page of the Daily Nation: in BBI referendum contest, it is 2010 all over again. Raila tells those opposing a reform push to join the no camp, and there's a story, page 5, sorry. Yes, of the Daily Nation. Black November as COVID-19 deaths spike. More than 270 people have died in 2 weeks. A story captured on page 12 of the Daily Nation. And another one on the front page revealed a scandal of 500,000 ghost pupils. Magoha says anomaly was unmasked by task force on new school curriculum. This is more or less like a money heist, or so to speak. Taxpayers have been losing billions of shillings every year after year. And of course, head teachers and corrupt education officials are seeking to line their own pockets. Inflated enrollment numbers used by the government to disburse funds for the free primary education program. Story captured on page 2, importantly, is that they have been stopped from doing this, which is indeed a great thing. But I mean, even as it is a great thing, we still grapple with the aspect of corruption. Steve, what can we do to deal with this? It is another scandal, on matters education at a time when, as a country, we're dealing with COVID-19. Such has been witnessed on matters health, on the KEMSA scandals, and it happens across different sectors. Really, after COVID-19, aren't we going to a point where we will be so worried? And is so much happening at this particular time that we are not awake or alert to, that will end us, flabbergasting, or will end up flabbergasting us later on?
I think it's very unfortunate because going back to a story that we have just discussed right now about medics, ready to really focus on the Occupational Safety Act, where they now must focus on their own safety because the government is not able to provide adequate protective equipment. Now, if you remember, there were about 4 billion that were given to that purpose. And of course, there was a lot of stealing and looting of those funds, which has now brought us here. And that is where now medics are at a point where they cannot take care of their own safety, even as they look for us, as they look over us. Now, going even to the educational sector, we have seen a lot of money also lost, and we are now preparing to go back to school. So I think we have a matter that we have to address in this country. And the problem in Kenya is that if you look at the trend that has been happening recently, there is a deliberate effort, I believe, either by the state or by some sort of a system to make Kenyans get used to the mediocrity and to even get used to high figures in terms of corruption. If you looked at some years ago, corruption will happen in the forms of millions, and it will be such a big deal considering, the amount of maybe even 10 million. An issue of 10 million corruption case was a big case. Today, losing 10 million in any government institution it's just like a big joke. It's like losing a 5 shilling coin. But we are actually having figures that are actually shooting. Nowadays, they are stealing in billions, and Kenyans don't see a big deal about it. So we must start with Kenyans seeing a big deal about what is happening in the state. And I think that the solution does not lie in, basically the government. I believe that the government is put there by the people. So I think that it is the high time for the people to realize that their vote actually reflects on the kind of governance that they get, and therefore that we deserve better leadership. And the only way to get better leadership is by actually voting for the right leaders. If you look at this government, we voted for a government that had actually, had an issue with Eurobond and even an issue with NYS1, and we decided to give them a better term. If you look at Kirinyaga, they decided to give a person who had been charged with corruption case, they decided to actually reward her with a gubernatorial seat. So if you look at the trend of Kenyans, we are a people who have encouraged corruption by our own behavior, by our own voting trends, and therefore those who are in those offices, they actually steal so recklessly. And as I've told you, they are actually increasing the trend without Kenyans actually raising an eyebrow, that we are now at billions. We are actually looting at billions and hundreds of millions, and Kenyans don't find an issue with it. So it's a very devastating state. It's an issue that is bad, and I can tell Kenyans that it is only going to get worse unless they speak up and they actually change their voting patterns.
Okay, and I think on that note, time would not allow us to expound some more. I am grateful for the great insights. I leave you with pictures of the cartoon of the edition that is on the People Daily on Matters referendum, the BBI, and the fact that President Uhuru Kenyatta says that yes, he has the key to a better Kenya, or the BBI is technically what it will be, a better Kenya for us. Also on the Daily Nation speaks of a scenario where as Kenyans we're all out here partying and ignoring the fact that COVID-19 is real and it is there, and most of the people are losing their lives because of this. Maybe just moments where we need to go back and try and be a little bit vigilant, try and be a little bit careful on how we're handling this situation. It harms not to abide by what it has been set as a health protocols at this time of COVID-19. And we leave it at that. Kijana Steve, ELP party leader, thank you so much for your time, and Lawis Brown, youth advocate. It was great having you this morning. We hope to see you some other time. Let's leave it at that on Matters Newspaper Review. We come back with the discussions of the day after this.